Right here, I feel like it's too close to my mouth.
Yeah, you're too close to that thing.
Yeah, I know. Smell like shit later. The big popular name of this cape has pockets on it, by the way. So.
Oh, dope. Pockets, huh?
Yeah, so you can jerk me off while I give you a haircut.
So what am I supposed to do with this?
Nah, if you need to use your phone or something like that, I had some little kids in here yesterday that wanted to be on their tablets and stuff.
Got it.
Yeah. What are we doing this time?
We kind of do the same thing. I think because I went up way high.
A little higher fade, but you don't want it like as tight as that one time.
Yeah, you can kind of keep it mid if you want. I mean, I hate getting fuzzy, man. I get fuzzy so damn quick. So yeah, I mean, you could do it. If I got a good line, you could make it really, really short down low with the 0 or whatever you got to do. Blend it. Just try to make it last long on the sides. But I do I don't know, when I got it was nice to see that because when you took it up high, it was short. But I did it made me appreciate the yeah, makes it look a little better.
That's a miracle on your ugly ass.
This man's doing the impossible. I'm telling you, that's the best sell ever though for a barber.
What's up?
Can't make you look good, but I can make you look better.
Yeah, ish, better ish.
Can't get any worse.
Well, we'll see. I'm not gonna lie.
Barbershop talk, round 2.
What you got for me today, man?
Oh, what should we go in on? What's been on your mind lately? I kind of, whenever I do this, like anything on social media, it's just like whatever happens in my day, I just type it up in my phone or write it down, but I need to go in on that later. So yeah, the last month a lot of stuff has changed. It's funny, I feel like that kind of happens though, is you have like 11 months kind of doing what you're talking about, just like put your nose down, get in the daily grind. And not that every day is the same, but it's kind of the same old, not that it's bad, but, and then all of a sudden stuff flips up on its head real quick and you're doing some different stuff.
So how's that whole transition thing going so far?
Well, I've kind of had to sit back and realize that I always knew that my freedom was the number one thing for me. Really, honestly, regardless of anything else, I wanted to, as long as I semi-enjoyed what I did, but I just wanted to make my own hours. And at the end of I've done that, but I've always had someone or something that kind of had something on me to where I've never truly been, my own boss in every sense. And so now I've finally got the monkey off my back. I don't work for the man at all in any sense, and that feels good. Yeah, it feels good. It's pretty cool what I've been able to do with that extra time as far as just, pumping it into social media and putting more stuff out there, and just kind of, so it's going to be cool to see what that turns into, just investing in that for the next 4 or 5 years. But yeah, it's been good. Just, I hate when looking back, it's like I could have got this done a long time ago and did some of the things I've done the last month a year ago, and I don't know why I didn't, but as I can tell you, I guess there's a timing for everything, but until you get put in a position where you got to get it done, there's a due date, then things are just kind of slow. We just get complacent. So
it's funny you say you haven't been completely your own boss, and you're gonna you want more of that freedom, but if anything, what I've noticed about coming into my own space, you still don't have I don't know, I think people who aren't self-employed take that whole freedom thing a little too literal, thinking you can have as many days off as you want and that kind of stuff. Yeah, but really you're probably going to be working harder than you ever did before,
Yep.
Just trying to
establish
yourself.
That's what's crazy. It's that's kind of what, so number one, we're not going to throw up the camera and just act all kosher to each other, because that's not how it is in here, and you guys all know that.
I don't even know what kosher means.
Yeah, we'll kind of keep it real, keep it lax. We're trying to find the balance. Last time we had a lot of, I felt like I had a lot of but, so I've got to get on the camera and get a little more practice of all that and clean it up. But that's what I wanted to go in on a little bit today is now that I'm thinking about it, Ryelee you've made the same transition that I've made, both in the last like 6 months or so, to where we're both doing our own thing, making our own hours, own schedule, but at the same time, like, your brand wasn't its own separate entity. It was still associated with the place you were at. I was very much the same way. So we were both independent contractors. So it's kind of crazy, even being self-employed and your own boss, there's still very much hoops and hurdles and transitions to kind of fully get over the hump as far as that would go. I mean, because it's huge for you to be able to have this own spot and you don't have other people in here, and it's just like however you want to decorate it and you can create your own vibe. That's big time. So yeah, we both went through that recently, and
it's pretty similar too. I mean, both of us very well known for in this town for what we do, and I'm sure you got people thinking that you owned the gym that you were working out of too, and
yep.
same with me. And
Yep.
It's a lot harder than you think it is. I mean, this place is super small. It's just this tiny room, but to get everything set up and to be on your own, it's a lot of work that goes into it. And I mean, now I've been busier than I ever have been, which you're always grateful for, and you hope for when you switch into your own stuff like that. But it's definitely not the freedom that people from on the outside think about. When you think of being self-employed and stuff, you do this because you don't want to work a 9 to 5, but instead you're working 24/7.
Right. Well, you get it with the booking and the scheduling. It's all that other stuff, So, I mean, and each is good. There's benefits of each, but yeah, I think that's probably the biggest thing is that freedom is definitely not free.
That freedom means more of like doing what you want on your own terms.
Right. Yeah. It doesn't mean that you have more free time.
Yeah,
I think that's what people get that confused with, right? Freedom is not
freedom
more
of
free time.
being able to take a day off whenever you want to. You really got to be smart about that, because you need to take too many days off, then you're setting yourself up pretty bad.
Yeah. Well, especially because we're both still in the early on, and when you start a business like this, it has to be yes, in my opinion. Like the first 5 years, every single time it has to be yes, and that's just how you can build things up and build a reputation. And you kind of afford yourself that luxury to be able to leave and go take a 3-day weekend to do whatever you need to do, or like you said, to get stuff done, which is good. But
sometimes it's easy to, you take 1 3-day weekend, then you feel like you've deserved another one not too long after, but you do have to be disciplined in that. I don't think being self-employed and doing your own thing is for everyone, honestly.
No,
I think everybody should find like something that they can enjoy doing, but not everybody's meant to.
And I mean,
to do this type of stuff.
Sometimes it is from like a talent perspective, but a lot of times it's just like a personality thing. Like not everyone. I mean, you kind of got to just like assess yourself and what does make you happy, and I don't know. So I think some people will thrive in that structure more, where you just show up, you do your job that you're supposed to do, and you do it really well, and life is really smooth that way. One of the things I was so like, I don't know about you. I mean, I almost feel like you had more of a plan than me, to be quite honest. Because I remember having you come over to the West B house and going down, ducking our heads to get underneath the beams and going down the rickety wooden stairs to the basement, so you could line us up. We'd be like, oh man, we're fuzzy. We need a haircut this weekend. Let's call Ryelee, and you come do that. And I feel like you were kind of in the same sense of like you knew you liked cutting hair and stuff, but I don't know what else you thought you wanted to do at the time. But how did you get into what you wanted to do? Because obviously you made a lot of progress in your business. You are fully free to where you're not paying rent and working underneath someone else's brand. Now you got your own spot. Because I mean, I guess you've had where the shop that you were at transitioned to a new location, so you got to just roll with that, and then they go out, and so it was great because you were your hand was forced to do this as well, which was the best thing that ever happened to you. But I think it's tough because I didn't know what I wanted to do in the sense. Did you, or how did you kind of fall into this?
Into just being a barber, or how, like where I'm at
Yeah,
now?
because I just feel like you can't just go take some interest inventory like a lot of people think and then make that. I don't know. It's weird because it's like you got to let life come to you, but at the same time, then there's the balance of, are you just letting life come to you, or are you just kind of sitting there and because you have to be moving for something to happen, you know, like. And yeah, I guess how did you get to where you're at, or know? Because once you went to barber school, everything was pretty much set, and then it's up to you to go out and make something of this. But how did you even figure out? I think that's where it's hard for kids. You know, if we fast forward.
How did I ever even take the interest in being a barber?
Yeah, like 18 to 20 years old, 18 to 21. That like you're out of high school, you're in that. Because everyone's kind of got 4 years, whether you go to school or not, where it doesn't matter what other people think of you, but as far as societal expectations, you kind of got some time to like work a job or just go to school, like whatever you're doing, and kind of figure out what it is you want to invest your time in. And it does suck to some degree because you do feel like, you know, the sand timer's been tipped and that you got to start figuring something out at some point. And you don't want to invest, you know, time and energy into something, whether it be a degree or a profession, or have a job that's a dead end that you don't enjoy, and then have to backtrack later. How do you make that decision? What was it like for you?
So I actually started cutting hair when I was, I think, a junior in high school, so 16, 17. And I was really into art and stuff, drawing, doing stuff like that. And I think a lot of guys go through a little. I think at one point, everybody is curious about like whether they can cut hair or not, you know. Or a lot of guys are, and that's what happened. My friends, they cut each other's hair one day after school.
Were you guys all kind of, you know, talented as far as like art or like something as far as that goes?
I mean, yes and no, but like, so my buddies, they did designs on each other, and I don't know if they were just like some, you know, messing around on the weekend haircuts, but they, from an art standpoint, I was like, dude, that's not very good. Like those designs are not very good and stuff, and I don't know what it was that triggered me to be so, I guess, wrapped up into that. I guess it's because I'd already tried like drawing and painting and ceramics and stuff like that. So when I saw like designs on hair, I was like, I wonder if I can do that, I guess. And I remember back then, I mean, this is like it's either 2010 or 2009. I think it was 2010. Just watching a ton of YouTube videos, and
yeah, because you're like what, 44, right?
Yeah, 44. All right, cut. That's enough. This interview's over, and then that's enough for your haircut too. No,
that's why you got them pockets, so I can give you these hands if you try something.
Yeah. No,
I feel like that's the connection for me when I think about like you don't realize it at the time, but my experience, and as far as kind of what I'm doing now and looking back, is I think that's big to look at you having a natural talent for art. Like that's something you were blessed with.
Kind of like the eye for it and stuff. You know,
like you just, because, and that's where to me it's so interesting talking to people like you. I had one of my friends I was working with the other day, and the way that he thinks about things, and it's so abstract to me. I feel like my mind's more kind of simple and grounded on some things, but to me, that's like if someone else was in high school and you're trying to assess yourself, and we're talking about like how you know what direction to take. That's something to me, like for you, I feel like art is something A, that you're good at naturally, and B, it's like the time goes by quick with it, and you can really focus in and zone in on that.
Yeah, it kind of does help me. Like, I mean, it's not completely like this, but like doing this when I'm cutting hair, I'm for the most part. You know, it depends on like what you have going on outside, but for the most part, I've been able to ignore, you know, what's going on in my own personal life when I'm cutting hair. So yeah, it is kind of like
it's something that frees your mind, right? Yeah. And I mean that's what you really want to look for in a profession. So, anyways, that's just something there. I wanted to put that out there for that sort of age group. That's what you want to look at, is like, what is something that I'm good at, and what is is there any kind of, because it's hard to sit there and look at like, oh, art meant barbering now. There's 100 different things that could have meant, but yeah, I think that was definitely one of the foundational things for you. At least you can narrow your focus a little bit to what you're trying to explore. At any rate, so yeah, I
think too, like you should have a mental checklist. When I was in high school and stuff, and they start asking you what you wanted, Actually, when I was in high school, they never really asked you, like, what do you want to be?
Right.
It was, where do you want to go to school at?
Yeah.
And so, me, it's like, I always kind of knew in the back of my mind I didn't want to go to regular.
Can you please repeat that?
It was always, never, what do you want to do? It's always, where do you want to go? Where do you want to go to school at?
To me, I've never thought about it that way, but that's what's so crazy is to me, I'm like, your school, like school is just a transition. Mm-hmm. That's all it is. And it's like, why wouldn't you look at like what the ultimate goal is? It's like, oh no, let's just shoot for halfway, because that's all school is.
It really is. Yeah, what do I see after school and stuff? You know?
Why is it not like, what do you want to ultimately, like, you know, what's your life look like when you're 40? What are you doing on a day-to-day basis? What would bring, and then, okay, so since you want to do something around that avenue, I think these schools are going to be the best for you. Or, hey, it's not really going to matter too much, so this is going to, do you want to be close to your family? Do you not? You know, like, does the financial part of it, you know, do you want to save some money, which would usually be smart? That sort of thing. But yeah, I mean, you're exactly right.
And I think kids now, like, I've noticed that kind of schools have gone away from that approach, but I think what comes from that is, you know, as a young person, you're chasing the money and you're chasing like that validation of having the piece of paper.
Yeah.
You know, the degree.
Yeah, absolutely. That when I was graduating, that's really all it was for me too. I looked at some things. I looked at, all right, you know, like my grandfather and my father are both in the financial industry, and I would be third generation of that. I've been around it a lot. I knew that from sitting down with older people in conversations, and I don't need to say much in there, but when they're talking about stuff like that, I'm like, man, like, how do I know about that? And it's like, well, I'm like, I just grew up around it. I never really realized that. So to me, naturally, it was like my grandfather used to have a lawyer in-house, and so they could just take over whenever they're doing estate planning and put it right across the room, and he would get everything done and documented right there. And so I was like, if I could do that, that would match up well with what my folks already have going. I could kind of build off of that. Mm-hmm. So because just right when I was graduating high school is where that was starting to happen. It's interesting. It's been cool to watch my parents build their business at that time, because just watching that gave me a lot of perspective. I didn't really get to grow up with everything flourishing like it is. Mm-hmm. But yeah, right at that time when I could start appreciating it and observing is when that happened. But yeah, that's it. We both just kind of fell into it, it sounds like, into something that we like. I
think also you said earlier about like you can't just expect life to kind of happen or just come to you.
Yeah.
I think it will. You have to just, if it's when it comes back to you too. If it keeps coming back to you, and that's kind of, you have to take that hint. You know, maybe I should try this a little harder, or, you know, ride this out a little longer. I think a lot of young people don't try things. They're afraid to, you know, they say, I know a lot of people, and I always refer back to what I do, but they go to barber school. They think they might want to be a barber, so they go right into barber school when they've never even been into a barber shop, or they've never, you know, shadowed a barber beforehand, or
so you're saying, like, stuff. If you kind of got your avenue where you're like, okay, and then something comes to mind where like, yeah, maybe I want to be a barber, like you're saying, go see what that's like. I
think you should go see what different things are like when you're young. And I think, like, well, for me, like, I said, I started in 2010, I think. And then I didn't know right away that I wanted to do this either. It's just that
were you getting paid at that point?
Like, I mean,
here and there,
$5-10 maybe. If I got $10 from someone, it was like,
your buddy's like, hey, thanks for your time. I gotcha.
And eventually that kept kind of getting more and more people. You were like
the traveling barber at that time, right?
Kind of, yeah. I mean, at first I was going and cutting hair in the worst conditions possible, you know, like dark basements, like you said, and just anywhere that there was a chair, really. A chair and a little bit of light.
Well, that's the thing that's, like you said, being known for something. It's like you've been doing that for a long time.
Yeah, and it's not just like, I just started doing it.
Yeah, we're talking a decade that people know, like, hey, oh yeah, like you need a haircut. Like, that's what we did. We're like, hey, doesn't Ryelee cut hair?
Yeah. And
it wasn't like you were a barber at the time, but you do. And yeah, it makes the transition.
Yeah, and then there was times definitely where I didn't want to, I always worked 2 jobs before I started doing this. And so there was times definitely where I was like, man, I kind of hate cutting hair. Like, I don't want to do this anymore. Like, forget barber school. I'm not.
And like, why was that?
I was burnt out with it. You know, it was the setting of like I said, I was working 2 jobs, and then at nighttime or when I wasn't working, I'd have people wanting to get their hair cut, come over to my house.
So now something that,
And it was just kind of like an inconvenience to me.
Even though it's work, because this is work.
It wasn't really work to me then either, and
did it become it because you were
it became
always
just a inconvenience.
Gotcha.
It's like, dude, I've been at it all day doing other stuff, and now you want me to come over at my house at 10 o'clock at night to get a haircut?
Like your energy's kind of sucked.
Yeah.
Like you have nothing. You can't put your soul into it when you're giving all that to, what were you doing? You're probably managing Domino's at the time and some other
well,
stuff.
that was before Domino's even. Domino's made me want to go to barber school. So
okay, that's another gem you just put out there.
Yeah, Domino's. I cut the guy, my old boss, I cut his hair. I do his beard every week, and I've told him, like, if I would have never worked for you guys, I would have never went to barber school. I would have just found some job that I was comfortable, that I didn't love, but was easy, you know.
So so we got this avenue, and you understand what you're good at, you understand what you like. You're saying, hey, go catch a vibe somewhere, see what it's like for someone that's doing what you think that you possibly might want to do, or that is who's got a life or is doing things that you think you would like to live. Go see what that's like a little bit. Hey, how can I help you make your, because like, what if someone's like, hey man, like, can I come just like chill out and watch a couple haircuts a day? I'll clean the shop. Like
I have a kid that does that, and it's been cool. I have two, so I have.
You're not gonna ever say no to that.
No, and I tell kids all the time. They'll be like, I'll get kids that'll text me, and they'll be like, hey, I'm thinking about like trying out haircutting. Like, what's some tips? Come watch me on Friday. Come into the shop on Friday. You'll be surprised how many kids don't come.
There's value in seeing what you like, but also doing something that you don't like. Because it sounds like, honestly, Domino's was like the catalyst for you of like basically having to work late hours and I was like,
this is what life is. Like if I keep, and I've known in my mind, like I said before, you keep a mental checklist, and I knew I always wanted to kind of work for myself. I don't do well with like.
But until you experience the opposite, you don't really. Yeah. That's why experience is the best teacher, right there.
Yeah,
once you've lived that.
I was forced, not really forced to work at Domino's, but I needed money bad. I was pretty.
Yeah.
And they hired me instantly, and I remember the first day there, I wanted to quit. The very first day, I never even touched a pizza. I was just on the computer doing tests, and I wanted to quit. And my mom said, she's like, don't quit until you find something else. And I could never find something else, and for like 2 years.
Well, and honestly, around here, that pays pretty well for a job that you can get quickly.
Unless you were trying to work at the factory at the time, which I told myself I was not going to.
Well, and if you do that, you make more money, but then you completely sell out your barber dreams too, because then now you don't have time and energy to do anything.
Exactly.
Because there you were sick of hair cutting, but at that, you wouldn't have been able to cut hair.
Yeah. And I remember I cut a buddy's hair one day before I went to Domino's, and I went into Domino's. We were super busy. A couple of us were like, you could tell we didn't want to be there. And I remember the boss came up and he's like, "Come on, guys." He's like high energy, like the worst type of guy you want to be around when you're in a bad mood, because he's like trying to like get everybody going. You're like, dude, just get away from me. And he's like, "Come on, guys, what else would you rather be doing? You're making pizzas. Like, it's not that hard. Like, you could be digging a ditch somewhere or something." I was like, I could be cutting more hair, too.
And you're I'm about to dig my own grave.
I always remember that. Yeah, exactly. I always remember that. And then from, like, I heard that, EWC had this barber program that they were going to start, and I just kind of kept putting all my eggs in that basket and hoping that it was a real thing. And I remember hating every single day, dreading to go to Domino's. I used to hate, like, the uniform. I used to hate the way my feet sounded on the gravel in the back parking lot. Like, this is so annoying, like walking through this
that's the thing is
lot.
Like when you, like, whether that's a relationship, your career, or whatever, when you kind of when it's not right like that, you hate every little thing about it.
I hated the smell of it.
Everything, the way someone talks. You're like, and a lot of your coworkers probably, like, I don't want to say annoyed you. You get along with people, but you just don't want to be in that place.
Yeah,
man.
it taught me a lot too, because
that brings out the worst.
No matter what, I never went into. I make it sound like I was a miserable guy, but as soon as I opened that door to get in there, I was different.
That being said, it's not that you ever acted miserable to other people.
I was on the inside,
but you felt miserable.
Yeah,
and it's good to know that, because I think a lot of people live just like that for their whole life. When you think about that, that is really sad, because we only get one of these things, and it is very short.
Oh yeah, you're right on that, man. And
So
they just settle for that, and I never did. I got offered to be a manager a couple times over there, and I just never took it because I knew, like you said, it would
commit
take
to it
away
more.
from what I had, what the big picture was, and pretty soon all my coworkers over there, they knew me as the guy that cuts hair because I was cutting other guys' hair and stuff like that. And
Yeah.
I worked there when I went to school too, so I worked 2 jobs on top of going to barber school, and that was just the thing too. Being a barber was something that was worth that commitment to me.
Yeah.
Worth that sacrifice.
To be miserable for a bit.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is something I want to go on here because I see this happen with a lot of people that want to make it, and it's a lot of times it's someone that's making good money. It's good when you talk to people because you can sort things out in your mind, and I think one of the things that we both, in where we're at right now, transitioned very slowly into this, and I feel like you could have been a barber probably a lot earlier than you were. I could have went off, like I could have started training full time a lot quicker than I did. I could have had my own spot a lot faster than I did, but I think it is so important to let the market dictate that for you. And the other thing is, I see people all the time, if they're working somewhere and they're making a decent living, or even if you're trying to like make that jump and transition, I feel like people go into something and they're like, hey, I do like this, I would enjoy doing that. So they got that, like what their vision would be, but they overinvest themselves into it. I think
Bite off more than they can chew.
Yeah, they'll try to like worry about all the branding. I'm going to get business cards and this and that, and I'm not saying that that's not all good, but I was for over a year I wasn't even RPT wasn't a thing.
Yeah.
For like probably 6-8 months, it wasn't a thing, and then once it built into something is when you got to. But I feel like people are trying to slap a sticker on something that doesn't exist a lot of times, and they're buying like equipment that they don't need for whatever they're gonna do, and I'm like, you got to start smaller. And I guess the thing that I'm trying to say
you got to snowball it, I think.
Yeah, you do, and like you transitioned, we transitioned similar, and we're both here today, and it's still growing into something. I think it's important to look at, just like that. I don't know, success kind of speaks in a sense, and you have to be willing to be miserable like that and float it, because it probably wouldn't have been the best thing for you just to go all in on barber school like right away. And
I know for a fact,
you're going to be juggling for a while.
Who I am, if I would have went to barber school straight out of high school, I wouldn't have probably stuck with it.
So for me, when how I got to that point, like you, I had no idea this is what I want to do. I did this in high school too. I started, I'd always been like the type to just like really start working. That happened to me probably about my 8th grade year. And I got into the strength training my junior year, and I'm not kidding you, I literally never missed a day from my junior year all until the day I graduated.
Really?
Never missed a day. It made such a big difference just for sports for me, but my psyche. It was just I don't know. I'm like you. I conceal that I'm very high energy inside, because I kind of give off an easy vibe. But I have to like use that energy for something, or else it doesn't manifest itself in a positive way for me. So, and when I do that though, I speak different. I move different. I feel different. It's just like me being able to go in and strength train and box and do that sort of stuff is absolutely like you being able to focus in on this stuff. And I did not know that's what I wanted to do. I was going to school.
It just kind of happens, like stuff like what you and I do. It just kind of does happen. It's not when I first watched YouTube videos. I kind of remember that very first time doing it, and like I never ever thought of like charging someone for a haircut, or like I just wanted to do something cool on my friends.
Yeah, you just want to do it to learn. I did it because it made myself better. A lot of my friends then, so we all lifted weights together, and I had been running us through, like, since I was the one who was the most invested in it in high school. It was like, all right, so what are we doing today? And I'd structure the workout, and then my friends went off to the military, so then we were training for that. And the gym was just a part of me. And so then when I got into the insurance business, I got my license when I was 18. And I was going to school. It was full-time. I was part-time each semester, but then I would take summer classes the whole time, so it'd add up to full-time. And I was calling 60-year-old people selling health insurance, and we were working 9 to 9, and after we'd finish up, I'd have to write all my essays and do all my schoolwork. Man, it sucked. But I mean, I was down for it because it kept me super busy, which was great. I was always like, how can I fill my time? And I knew it was productive. School kept me sharp. And so then I went up to the local community college here, and I stopped going online. I was like, I need to go in person, and it's hard to sell insurance when you're 18 years old. It is. And so When the open enrollment period was over and health insurance was done, I wasn't going to make a living selling life insurance, and my parents had just started their business. They're not going to just pay me to be there for no reason. And so I had to figure something else out. And I started, someone saw, I think it was my old man saw, he's like, hey man, there's a part-time job open at the gym. I started doing that. I was just there all the time, clocking hours, working out. And pretty soon they're like, well, like this is what you do. Why don't you train? We don't have any trainers, so you should start training. And then within 8 months, I had a couple clients. It was like a little side thing, and I just did it because it was fun. You're trying to get anybody and everyone you can just to train with you, right?
Yeah.
And within 8 months, I was working 14-hour days. Then I'm at 3 different gyms, traveling to Scottsbluff every night. But that's what I'm talking about. Is like I didn't like that. I let that grow at its own pace. I wasn't like, okay, I'm quitting this, and then I'm just going to go in on training and like try to make it happen. I think that's like. People make the jump too early, in my opinion. You should, at any rate, it might suck to kind of bite it for a little longer and work at Domino's or be stuck working.
Be patient with yourself.
Because there's just less risk to that, and I think people try to kind of put the cart ahead of the horse as far as that goes, and I think that's a big mistake, because then they flunk and flop, and then they're pretty much like you're taking an L then, and when you go out your first thing and you get popped in the mouth and you're like, oh, I'm gonna go right back to that job security that I had before. That's a lot nicer. Yeah. So, Domino's might be miserable, delivering packages might be miserable. I hate that, but at least I can depend on my income.
Yeah, and that's exactly how it was for me. And the other thing, like, if you're looking to get into a career and maybe you think that you're falling behind and stuff, behind your friends and stuff, I would say stop comparing yourself to anyone else. Like, I always try to give people advice for
how could we compare ourselves to each other. Like how we got to where we're at is similar in a general sense, but the things that we do, the things we're interested in, like you and I as people, we could not be more different. If we tried to force feed that, it's about just trying to kind of give it, because that's what I'm talking about. Like, it's so interesting to me. I would not ever stand a prayer to be able to draw like you do, to cut hair like you do. That is like not in my MO whatsoever. And you're right. People try to fit everyone else's mold.
And I think social media is a big thing of that too. Like, I get, it was easy for me to be patient with myself when I was learning my own skill set, because back in 2010, I don't even think MySpace was a thing yet. Or, not MySpace. That's how old I am. MySpace was the only thing.
44.
No, it was, Instagram. Like, now you can't want to be a barber and
not
you can't get on Instagram and not see a barber video pop up.
So this is one thing. How different when you first started cutting hair professionally, if you were to throw up a picture of a haircut versus like today, how much different does that look?
Like my own personal haircuts?
Yeah.
Oh, I was just telling someone yesterday, I think I've gotten, so when I was in barber school, I had already been cutting hair for, I think 7, 8 years. And I was way better than everybody else. Well, I won't say way better, but I was noticeably better than all the other students, and that was discouraging because they would always compare themselves to me.
Sure.
What's up, Martin? But yeah, I think I have gotten way better. Like, fine little details and stuff. Like doing a fade is doing a fade. But
and even how like the presentation, as far as how you edit up the picture and the lighting.
Yeah, adding more things into more of just being overall business. Check it out, man. I know you're still ugly, but
you tried your best.
It's the best I can do.
Do I have to pay for this?
Oh, of course, double. I don't know why you're always like trying to
get me out of this place.
Yeah. You sure you're not Mexican, man, too?